DataKind's DataKit event. This is an exciting opportunity to share with you more about how you all can help us in a challenge around financial inclusion. And like I said, we'll be sure to share a recording. So in going to the next slide, a couple of housekeeping things we just wanted to make you aware of. You all, when you registered, you acknowledged our code of conduct. So at DataKind, we like to say, be tough on ideas, but gentle on people. So just really want to appreciate the mutual respect of collaboration that we all are here today. And then, like I said, recording. We will make sure to record and provide slides as well after the event. If you have any questions, you should see a Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We ask that you put all your questions in that box. That will actually enable you to upvote a question, and it also allows us to be able to clearly see all the questions coming in and make sure that we're tracking and responding to them. So please make sure you do that. And then feel free to hashtag us at DataKind on social. And I was having so much fun getting started, I didn't get a chance to introduce myself. So I'm Shayna Lee, the Senior Director of Community Engagement here at DataKind, and we're so thrilled to have you. And going on to the next slide, just wanted to highlight our agenda for today. So for many of you, we saw that many of you are new to DataKind. So we'll spend a couple of minutes telling you about who we are. We'll talk a little bit about the DataKit event itself, and then we'll go into the context of this event theme, which is around financial inclusion and economic opportunity. We're going to include next steps on how to get started. We know that you all are anxious to dive in and explore and learn more, so we will provide next steps on how to get started. And of course, we will have a Q&A portion from you. So again, as you have questions, make sure you note that in your Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And also, if you need to make your screen bigger or smaller, there is an option to be able to increase the size if you do need that function. So, and going to the next slide, this is pretty much our mission here. We are a small global nonprofit. Excuse me. So we actually were a small global nonprofit that started off in 2012, and we basically tackle the world's toughest challenges with data science and AI to improve capabilities, reach, and scale of social impact organizations. So we do this with an in-house technical team, but we also have been fortunate to partner with our global community of volunteers to together design innovative solutions to tough challenges. And ultimately, DataKind attempts to bridge the gap between technologists and the social impact sector. So ultimately, when this happens, going into the next slide, success for us is when DataKind and its partners have created data science solutions that are adopted widely and contribute positively to sector level problems. And then you'll see here on this next slide, these are just a few accomplishments that we've been proud of doing over the past 12 plus years. And in doing this, most importantly, in partnership with our community of volunteers. So 30,000 community members worldwide, representing over 174 countries. We have 5 volunteer chapter locations. We've worked on over 350 projects, all culminating into $35 million worth of pro bono services that have been delivered in service to social impact organizations. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mallory Sheff, who's going to tell you a little bit more about this event and how you can get started. And like I said, we will be recording and sending out that recording to you all. And as you hear Mallory, feel free to put questions in the Q&A portion of your Zoom screen. Thanks so much, and I'll turn it over to you, Mallory.
Thanks so much, Shayna. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mallory Sheff. I'm a Director of Product and Programs here at DataKind. and I have the privilege to spearhead our portfolio in financial inclusion and economic opportunity. There are over 200 global participants that have joined today's kickoff. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm excited to dive in today. So a little bit about why are we launching this data kit? Well, DataKind has been inspired by GovLab's 100 Questions initiatives. There are also incredible community challenges on Kaggle and NASA and Code for America's National Day of Civic Hacking. And it's really an opportunity to shape an engagement in a local community and bring you all the technologists together to work together, troubleshoot, problem solve, and leverage your expertise. As we will share throughout the course of not only this kickoff event, but also throughout the course of this data kit, the privilege of having you join us is incredible, and we are so thankful. You can contribute during this event as much as you can, when you can, and from where you are, all knowing that the work that you do truly contributes to broader social impact. And as Shanna mentioned, the theme for our data kit over the next couple of weeks is financial inclusion and economic opportunity. And this is an opportunity for us to just level set on what we mean by that. Let's lay the foundations of these terms to make sure that we are driving forward on the impact together. Financial inclusion is the availability and access to financial services and products for all members of society, regardless of their income or social status. When we talk about these inclusive financial services, we mean that people can store and increase their savings. This allows them to cope with unexpected economic shocks, access more affordable social benefits, and make investments in economic opportunities so that they can grow and it can lead them out of poverty. When we talk about economic opportunity, that term is a little bit broader. When we say economic opportunity, it's a term that encompasses the ability to reduce poverty, inequality, and unemployment by creating an inclusive economy where everyone has a fair chance to succeed. And again, this definition of terms is high level, and do not worry, we will be providing significantly more context, background, variables, data sets over the next couple of minutes, and you'll be able to dive in to more of that during our data kit. And DataKind has been exploring, learning from, and executing projects in this sector for over 5 years now. Back in 2020, we entered the space in partnership with an organization called data.org to really dive in and understand what we mean by inclusive growth, economic opportunity, financial inclusion, and really allowed us to think more deeply about the core areas related to economic well-being and financial inclusion. Most recently, we had the privilege to partner with the International Monetary Fund to tackle big questions on climate and gender as they intersect with economic opportunity. We also connected with 6 organizations to develop one-on-one solutions for our partners across the US and globally. And we launched 3 publicly available products that support financial inclusion and economic opportunity. Through all of this work, we really aim to ensure that our stakeholders, our partners, our collaborators have access to high quality, up-to-date, and relevant data and data-driven insights that can really empower them to drive strategic decision-making, improve their service delivery, and ultimately improve their impact. With that, let's dive in. How do we actually get started with this data kit? Well, first and foremost, we encourage you to connect with your global and local community. This is an incredible opportunity to connect on Slack with people across borders internationally, but also to see, is someone in your community working at DataKind? Can you meet up, work together, get to know and tackle these challenges and problem sets together? We have an incredible community around the world. We have some DataKind chapters, but let's try and see how we can continue to expand our network. You will be using 2 key products over the course of this event. The first is Slack, so connect over Slack. And we can also connect over GitHub, and we'll tell you more about that. As always, the DataKind staff will be ever present to support you throughout this journey. So connect with us on Slack if you have any questions. We will be very happy to step in to provide some support, and also see if there are ways that we can actually connect you to a broader community that is either local or international. For this challenge, you will learn soon enough more specifically what that is. We'll really be leveraging on two key technical areas of your expertise. The first is research. Throughout this data kit, we'll be looking to capture a comprehensive picture of financial inclusion and economic opportunity. We know that there is a lot of data out there, but how good is that data? How valuable is it? So not only will we welcome you supporting finding those data sets, but we welcome you putting a critical lens to exploring, is this data source valuable to the types of questions and challenges that DataKind as a community we are trying to solve? We'll also really welcome you thinking and looking at the data in myriad ways through data analysis and visualization. Thinking about drawing connections between data sets, visualizing relationships, and really thinking about the different types of stakeholders we at DataKind have the privilege of collaborating with. Some stakeholders are earlier on their data maturity journey. So how can we really think about drawing key insights, visualizing those insights in an interpretable manner such that they can understand how to leverage that data effectively to drive impact? Others might be more mature in their data maturity journey and will welcome more complex data insights and visualizations. So as you explore the data, really think about that broad gamut of different types of organizations that are the stakeholders that DataKind has collaborated with and will collaborate with moving forward. Specifically, what is the challenge we're looking to address today? As briefly mentioned over the course of this presentation, we know that without comprehensive, high-quality data, many organizations, especially those in the social impact sector, really have a hard time identifying gaps in access to financial services, or even thinking about the impact of economic policies and how to strategically design interventions, products, and financial services that can effectively reach some of these underserved communities. This limited data availability prevents stakeholders not only from making informed data-driven decisions, but it also demonstrates missed opportunities for meaningful impact. If a stakeholder is looking to identify a community with an opportunity for investment, it's a missed opportunity if the data does not point to that community. And we're really looking forward to diving in with you over the next couple of weeks to think about these hard questions and how data can help solve that. And so the main challenge for the work that we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks together is really to explore data sets around international economic opportunity and drawing insights from those data sets. We really want to empower our entire suite of stakeholders with not only increased data availability, but also increased knowledge around the type of data-driven insights that we can extract from those data sets and how we can learn more deeply around financial inclusion and economic opportunity at a community level. For this challenge, as you'll see through the GitHub repository and also through our Slack Canva, we will provide links to some initial data sets with a country-by-country exploration. We encourage you to do two things. On the one hand, think outside the box. What are some additional data sources that you can pull from to really think of what a comprehensive picture of financial inclusion and economic opportunity means for a particular context? We also say we have provided some country level recommendations. We have about 6 countries to start doing a deep dive. If you'd like to explore another country, if you have knowledge of data in another country, we are very welcome to those suggestions as well. So please feel free to say, I'd like to do Nigeria, or I'd like to do Italy. We absolutely welcome that and encourage you to then find a community of technologists that can gather with you and solve and co-create together. And lastly, at the end of this incredible DataKit opportunity, we'll want to celebrate. Celebrate you, first and foremost, for collaborating and contributing with us at DataKind, but also celebrating the incredible work that you'll be sharing. As you will see, we will really encourage you to share your work regularly. It's an opportunity for us to learn about the thought process, about what you've tried and didn't work, and what you tried and did work. Everything will be helpful to us at DataKind to truly understand how we can think through some of these tough challenges. My colleague Shayna will be glad to share a certificate of participation. And we have some really exciting digital swag from DataKind that you can share across social media channels to demonstrate that you have participated with us on this DataKit adventure. And lastly, we encourage you to join DataKind's global network of technologists. We'll share a little bit more about that throughout the event, but you can join us through our community channels on Slack, as well as through our newsletter channel. So here's what to do next. Are you ready to dive in and jump in to take action? So this data kit officially kicks off today and will last through April 30th. You will be able to dive into the challenge, read, understand what we're trying to tackle, and work with your community of technologists together with us at DataKind to work towards solving some of these tough questions. First and foremost, we encourage you to join the DataKit Slack workspace. My colleague Shayna will be sharing the link in the chat, so we encourage you to go ahead, log onto that workspace, and start reading a little bit about the information we have. There are pinned materials in the announcements channel that you'll be able to access. And for those who have a GitHub account, we will also have a GitHub repository. This GitHub repository has a README as well as some folders and some discussion sections. And we will absolutely encourage you to do all of the work through GitHub or to share your work through Slack for those who do not have a GitHub account. We encourage you to introduce yourselves. Where are you from? What do you want to do? What do you want to tackle? Do you want to create some small groups with technologists around the world to work together and identify some of the data sets and insights and visualizations that you can pull together? We at DataKind, again, just emphasizing this, will be here to answer any and all of your questions, whether it's how can I better use Slack, or should I be creating a GitHub account, to I'm looking at the data set in this country, would really welcome your thoughts. Please do not hesitate to reach out. We have some digital swag, and again, please contribute as you can, when you can, over the next couple of weeks, and we'll very much look forward to working with you and learning from you and learning from each other on this exciting opportunity. I'll pause here to see if there are any questions. Shayna, I don't know if there's anything that you want to bring specifically to my attention. I'm going to take a quick look here at the Q&A box. Let's see.
Yeah, so good news, Mallory. Thanks everyone for asking really good questions. We knew there would be lots of excitement. You asked questions that we were just about to answer. So a lot of them were really logistical in nature. To Mallory's point, we encourage you to click on the Slack links. This is where there's all the information around the context and details, some sample data sets. And to the point, I think there's a question that came up, any data sets for the USA? There is, so she's nodding her head. So there is, but even if there is not a data set already for a particular country, we invite conversations to jumpstart and locate that. So that's just to get you started. But if you come across something else, that's the spirit of this event, to be able to talk and connect with one another.
Thanks, Shayna. Yes, great questions for those who are based in the US or interested in looking at US around US data sets. Given the current political situation in the US, we want to be mindful of whether or not certain publicly available data sets may change. For the time being, we are focusing all of our work on international exploration, but that's not to say that down the road this will be providing us significant insight, significant learnings that could then be applied to US-based data sets.
Thanks so much for clarifying that, Mallory. Yes, another question. Someone said they're in Nigeria. They'd like to do Nigeria in particular. That's exactly one of the examples that Mallory highlighted earlier. You are welcome to look at other countries as well. There's a good question that came up. Who gets access to the data insights at the end? How do we make a change after exploring the data sets? How do the banks and or financial governments and institutions know about the data mining? So I think the theme of this is the what next? How does this feed into DataKind's work, Mallory?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So I just want to be really explicit, and thank you for making sure I do that explicit communication. The types of data sets we'll be looking at are only publicly available data sets. We are not trying to do any data mining. We are not trying to get data sets that are behind any sort of paywalls. The opportunity here is for us to think about data that is publicly available, but extremely disparate across different institutions, different government organizations or bodies. How can we pull data sets together for a single country, normalize them at a same unit of analysis, whether that's a municipality or a district, and start to paint a very comprehensive picture of the economic profile and financial inclusion profile of those geographic localities. That's the reason why we will not be doing any sort of data mining on financial institutions specifically, because again, yes, we absolutely want to not only respect the privacy of the data that those institutions are collecting, but most importantly, respect the privacy of the actual individuals who that data represents. In terms of next steps, this will be and is described in the additional information. But what we're really hoping to learn here is how can we maybe think of developing a global public product that is country specific, that will provide an aggregate of data sets normalized that any sort of stakeholder working in the social impact sector can access, understand the types of data available to them, create bespoke data sets from this publicly available data that is useful for their mission and their impact, and even thinking about automating some visualizations. So this is an incredible first step for us to empower these social impact stakeholders around understanding the power of data and data-driven insights. And so we're so grateful for your contributions, because without your testing, iterating, exploration, we wouldn't be able to do this at the scale at which we're hoping to do it.
Okay, Mallory, there's a couple other questions in the Q&A, if you can see this one. Thanks, Cristobal, for sharing your question. Having experience improving the accessibility of visualizations and want to continue contributing in other countries. So it sounds like there is a data skill set that's being identified. Any comment there, Mallory?
First of all, Cristobal, this is fantastic. And this is absolutely the type of additional expertise that you can certainly provide. I would encourage you to make sure that in the Slack channel, the general channel, feel free to post not only this information with your expertise, any resources that might be available to individuals, and then we'll look forward to actually working with you closely to think about what are some of the common metrics or common ways in which we should approach improving accessibility, which is, as my DataKind colleagues know, is actually something we're working on actively throughout all of our websites as well. So thank you for that. A few other questions. In the event one gets a data set, can one go ahead with the visualization? Absolutely. If you have a data set and you want to do visualizations on just that data set, absolutely, please proceed. If you want to explore how you can link multiple data sets together and do some visualizations across those data sets, for example, one financial inclusion data set and one demographic data set at a specific geographic unit, that is great as well. So please do what you think is best. And if you have any additional questions, we will be available on Slack to help answer those. Let's see, Benjamin, are we able to freely talk about the project and our individual results and our experiences, or do you prefer that it remained within DataKind channels? I think we are completely open about you sharing about your experience. I think that that's wonderful. Again, I think individual results or experiences, we are using all publicly available data, so I don't think there's any embargo. Shayna, correct me if I'm wrong, but because it's all public data that we'll be using, if you want to share about some insights, results, or experiences publicly, we are fine with that. It would have been absolutely different if we're using kind of private data, which is not the case for this data kit.
Yeah, I would just add to that, if you come across colleagues or friends that are interested in joining the event, please have them register the way you did via Eventbrite. I'm going to put this link in the chat and we'll get them started. So just want to note that too. Sometimes that happens where folks want to participate.
Okay, thank you, Sheena. Um, I'm just going to go continue and go through some of these questions. So anyone can access the final product that we make through this event. The expectation is that, yes, if DataKind moves forward in developing a product, all of the products that DataKind puts forward as part of our core mission are fully publicly available. They are not behind paywalls. They are available to all stakeholders in a sector and even stakeholders who are not across that sector and want to learn more. Okay, let's continue. Correct me if I'm wrong. So what we will try to do is search for data sets about financial inclusivity and economic opportunities and draw insights from them. That is correct. That is the core mission of the current data kit. We are not yet thinking about doing a data catalog on financial inclusivity and economic opportunities. But what we're hoping to see is there a potential for developing some sort of product that could become a data catalog? I think first we want to test hypotheses, test and iterate with you and your expertise to develop and ideate and see if there is potential for us to develop that. So I think absolutely stay tuned. We'll be able to share more throughout the course of the data kit, and most importantly over the next couple of months as DataKind kind of explores and does a deep dive into the incredible work that you are all going to be doing for the next couple of weeks. Are there any preferred formats for how results, visualizations, code are presented and shared? That is a fantastic question. There are no preferred formats. You can code and do visualizations in whatever you are most comfortable with. If you want to do Python, use Python. If you want to use R, use R. If you want to use something like Tableau Public, also feel free to do that. The one thing that we really encourage and really stress is please share your work. Please share your work on Slack. Please share your work on GitHub, whether it's final results, whether it's your process that didn't end in anything. I think it is really critical for us to understand what you've tried and iterated that worked or that didn't work. All of that will really be helpful to DataKind and ultimately to our stakeholders to make sure that we know the right path to take to develop the most impactful data-driven insights. So again, no guidelines on what the final product should look like. It's just sharing insights and visualizations that you think make the most sense in the context of understanding financial inclusion and economic opportunity at a local level. How can we really dive into understanding community needs, community opportunities? Okay. Let me see here. I'm sorry, I'm just going through all your incredible questions. And again, if I am not able to answer them today, please post them in Slack and I will get to them over the next couple of days in Slack to make sure that you're able to have the guidance you need as you embark on the DataKit adventure.
Yeah, and Mallory, I just want to highlight, I'm seeing lots of excited questions on how to get started. The first thing is to join the Slack work link. And when you enter Slack, and actually if you see on Mallory's screen right here, we have a bit of a screenshot of our announcement channel. If you click on the Get Started here, which is circled in red on the screen, that's going to open up all the steps. It'll have the links to GitHub, some of the sample data sets, more information about the context around financial inclusion and economic opportunity. So we definitely encourage you all to take a look at that material. Certainly, if you have questions as you dive in, we have a #help channel as well. And we do have technical team members that will also be available to answer questions there. So just wanted to highlight that because I saw lots of good questions on how to get started. We have pinned messages within Slack that will be helpful, and then happy to keep the questions going. If you observe something, feel free to put that in the channel. We like to crowdsource expertise and answers here. So that is the beauty of having a global event and folks with different talents that we always see.
Thanks so much, Shayna. I have another fantastic question here. Are you expecting each person to work on one country and then merge the results at the end? So the beauty of the data kit is if you want to work on your own and select one country and explore a few data sets, that's great. If you want to try and join others that are working on the same country, collaborate, iterate, work together as a group, that's also wonderful. You will see when you join Slack and GitHub, there are specific discussion channels for each country. You can join those and try to explore collaboratively on different data sets that each person can tackle or coordinate together or not. It is completely up to you. And then for those who are looking to add suggestions of new countries, please do let us know in the general channel. If there are others that want to join another discussion channel, then I can create one so that you can gather together and explore that new country together. A lot of great questions on just the definition, on what we mean by economic opportunity and financial inclusion, because it is very broad. I would really encourage you to read both the README of the entire challenge in GitHub or on the Canva on Slack. I go into a lot more detail in terms of how we're really thinking strategically about these terms. And again, these are very broad terms. We acknowledge that, but it also provides us with an opportunity to look at it from very different lenses. Someone who's based in the Philippines will think about economic opportunity very differently, perhaps, to someone in Mexico. Maybe not, but they might have nuances that will provide to our overarching view and better understanding of this term and how we use data and data-driven insights to drive to impact. So we encourage you to think broadly, but also if you want to take a very restrictive view of this, we encourage that as well. There are no right or wrong answers here. Here. I'm very excited. I'm seeing people introduce themselves in the Slack channel. That's wonderful. If you have any questions that with trouble either accessing Slack or GitHub, feel free to put it in the Q&A box and we can try and answer those today. We do have a question around how do we join Slack? Shayna, if you could very kindly put the link back in the chat. Shayna will put the link. You can click directly on that link. For those who do not have an account, you might have to create an account. And if not, you can then just join the Slack workspace.
Yes, I just put the link in there, or you can scan the QR code that you see on Mallory's screen. That will also take you to the Slack channel. And again, that is where you'll see all the great information from the data sets, the GitHub repository, the next steps, We will be providing the slides and recording there as well. And if you do have trouble joining Slack, please send an email to community@datakind.org and we'll get you started there. I'll put that in the chat as well, folks.
Also, a reminder for volunteers that were able to join partway through this presentation. One, this presentation is being recorded and will be shared by Shayna. For those who registered with their email address, it will be shared alongside these slides from this deck, so you can reference those back if you need. This presentation will also be linked on our Slack channel, so you can refer back to it as you need. I think the best advice I can share is to do a deep dive, start doing a deep dive into the documentation that we're providing you. That will either answer your current questions, and if they do, great. If they trigger new questions, then please go ahead and make those questions visible in our Slack channels, and our DataKind team will come in and make sure to provide you the information that you need to get started and start to do some diving in. I think the beauty of this data kit is really in your ability to just explore. Go and explore. Think about economic opportunity and financial inclusion from different angles. Think about it from the perspective of different stakeholders. Someone who works for a financial institution versus a community-based organization may want different but complementary information. And so you can certainly think about it that way. How can we really paint a comprehensive picture with the public data that's available in a country? One of the countries that we've proposed is India. India has a tremendous wealth of public data. What is the right data? Let's think critically about the right data in support of some of these broader questions. And can we think about putting together 2 or 3 data sets that are completely different from different government bodies, from different institutions, and actually bringing those insights together to comprehensively start to dive into what there are from opportunities for communities or needs for communities. One question is, does DataKind gather on the ground? I'm assuming kind of field information for some applications, especially for critical parts of the world that are data scarce. DataKind prides itself in collaborating very closely with stakeholders that best understand the local context. For this current data kit, we are focusing only on publicly available data that is available through online web searches. But yes, what we aim to do down the road is to collaborate and closely build partnerships with stakeholders and organizations that best understand the local context and how this data can either be enriched by their own programmatic or project data, or can really be thought more critically, leveraging their lens and their better understanding of the context.
Apologies, Mallory. I don't know, you may have answered this question already. Someone asked a question around overlapping contributions. Did you get a chance to weigh in?
I have not yet. Am I concerned about overlapping contributions? I am not. I think that there may be some volunteers that are exploring data in the same way, but for the grand majority, given the amount of data sets that we have available, the diversity of countries that we're looking to do a deep dive into, I truly believe that everyone will be bringing their own unique perspective to how to look at data, how to analyze and visualize data, and the type of insights that people will be able to extract and generate. So I'm not at all concerned about overlapping contributions, and I actually doubt that there will be many during this event. And if there are, that's okay. It validates that the insights that volunteers have found are truly important and valuable to some of the explorations that we're looking to validate.
There's a really good question that kind of alludes to the theme around, if there's an intent to build a product or something out of this event, how do we do that from a plethora of different data sets or some that may have different features? So you may want to talk about that, Mallory. We have done events like this before where we get all sorts of information coming in, and that's where we have a tech team that helps to align and bring some of those pieces together. But Mallory, if you wanted to speak on that a little more.
Yeah, these are thank you for pointing this question out. I think I was a little higher up still in my review of the great questions. We are leveraging this incredibly um, skilled community to explore first and foremost what are the potential data-driven insights that are available at a country level, right? We want to better understand, is there data available? Is it valuable data? Are the insights we can extract important? Once we have that information, it's an opportunity for us to connect again with local stakeholders and partners on the ground to co-create with them and think through how would they use this data? What would they like to see more of? How would they interact with this data? And this is where our incredible product owner who's joining us for this event will be able to think through all of these questions and really think through the potential applicability in developing a product. I think we are really at the first step of understanding, is there even data to support stakeholder impact? And once we have that validation, we can think about what a product would look like, what it would feel like, what stakeholders would like to see and use, and take it from there. Should we enrich the data to explore the impact of country-specific changes in policy or other events? That's a very good question. I think that it is always important, especially when we do some data visualizations and interpret the data, to think about the context. So any sort of policy or other events in that context are critical. Even thinking about data that came from 2020 when we were all kind of in a global pandemic situation, it is absolutely critical for us to think about that. If you have suggestions on how you would like to bring that lens to the data sets that you found or to the interpretation of that data, please do bring that to our attention. I think that will be tremendously enriching and something that we can share across the broader DataKit community. Let me see here. Please keep the questions coming. I'm trying to answer them all. These are wonderful.
Yeah, and again, I see there's a lot of comments in the chat. The chat, as you can see, moves very, very fast. So we recommend as a first step to join the Slack link and introduce yourselves. And you can certainly, there's channels there where you can connect and ask questions. And then you can, of course, still use the Q&A button of your Zoom screen because they're coming in very quickly, and this has been a helpful tool to help track and manage these great questions coming in.
I also see some great questions of, is anyone interested in this country? Is anyone interested in this country? If people are not responding in our current Zoom chat, please go ahead and ask those questions in Slack. People will then be able to join. If there are a small group of you interested in a new country, please let me know. I can create a small Slack channel specific to that country for you to start iterating and collaborating together. I see people asking questions, Lithuania, Peru, this is all very exciting. And if no one is interested and people join in the next couple of days, then you should still put it in Slack because people might be able to see that and join you and collaborate with you. So we absolutely encourage it.
There's a question I see around, are there guidelines on what the final product or contribution should look like? We may have answered that, but I know that's listed When you join the Slack channel, we provide access to our GitHub repository, and it does share guidelines around how best to contribute. So just noting that.
Yes, we are not, in the course of the data kit, we are not aiming to have a final product. But again, I want to emphasize that any sort of research that you test, iterate, any sort of data that you explore, visualizations that you're testing out, please share those regularly, either on Slack or on GitHub. This will be just really helpful for other people to see what you've tried and tested that has worked, and maybe they can do something similar with other data sets that they're exploring. Or you've tried and tested this and it didn't work, and that's something they may not want to explore further either. So I think this is just an incredible opportunity to share lessons and learnings. I used to have a boss that always said we should talk about the F word, the fail. What did we do that failed? And we should absolutely highlight that because it provides insight into other projects and programs that shouldn't go that same route or should that try something slightly differently. So I think that's also very important, not to say that we are failing at anything, we are exploring, but what provides interesting results is just as important at what isn't providing interesting results. What countries are available for the project? Are they available on Slack already? They are available on Slack, both on Slack and on the GitHub repo. Again, these are just suggestions of countries where to start to. We have for each country some recommendations of initial data sets to explore. Again, we do not want to limit you to those particular countries or to those particular data sets. So we encourage you, if you want to explore something else, to do so. How many years of data are you trying to focus on? We are trying to explore the most recent data available. So as you explore the data sets, we recognize that some data sets like census data, for example, in the United States, is done once every 10 years. So depending upon the latest version of that data set, we may not have something that's extremely up to date, but in general, we would encourage anyone to explore data that is the most recent, such that we are able to paint the most up-to-date picture of the economic status and financial inclusion status of communities. Maybe a question for you, Shayna. Are we going to have any follow-up calls after this related to this initiative?
Yes, so typically we do like to share any updates via our newsletter is one channel that we use. We may do a share back. It has not been determined the exact manner in which it will be shared, but usually it'll happen either through the Slack workspace or through our newsletter, which will give you access to be able to subscribe and hear additional updates. A lot of it really is taking the time based on the tremendous insights that you all share. The team will be able to review and take a look at how to drive that work forward. And then at that point, we're able to share updates.
I'm just seeing some questions. I'm trying to look at both the chat and the Q&A box. One really interesting question here. Would an analysis that explores and intersects various data sets to identify pockets of especially financially vulnerable communities be something that fits with this program's goals? Yes, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head here. We can absolutely do some EDA and generate some insights on one data set. I think what we're hoping and we're aiming to through this data kit is really to leverage the power of your expertise to look at multiple data sets that you append at the same geographic unit of analysis and start to explore pockets of either financial vulnerable communities or communities that have opportunities for investment. I think that there are multiple ways of looking at the data, and that is a fantastic question, and absolutely, absolutely big yes to that. Some tips about getting started after joining Slack. So once you all have joined Slack, we would encourage you to either look at the announcements channel in Slack that will have all of the information posted in terms of more detail on the definitions of what we're aiming to do, some few guiding questions, as well as some of the countries and some of the data sets that we can look at. The same information is also included in GitHub. The link to the GitHub is in the chat, so I would encourage you to click on it. Even if you do not have a GitHub account, you can still read and access the information that is on there. So those are where I start. Join Slack, look at the GitHub, read the information. If questions come up, please ask us those questions. If you'd want to try and find fellow technologists to collaborate with, you can find those on Slack as well, or ask us. We can try to connect some people together, and you can start diving into research and data analysis. What forms of contribution do you expect? Code, visualization, or written report? That is a fantastic question. We do not expect any written report, although if you would like to contribute that, we absolutely welcome it. We absolutely encourage you to provide your code, visualization, and information on any data sets that you have and are exploring. And again, you can share that either on Slack or on GitHub or on both. Feel that there's some things popping up in the chat. Some questions.
Friendly reminder, put them in the Q&A portion because the chat moves really, really fast. So the Q&A button at your Zoom screen is where we're tracking.
Yes, I'm doing a quick scan of the chat. Can we create a DBT reporting layer for this project to enable reuse of data sets? Yes, absolutely. I think any way that your skills can contribute to this work is fantastic. If you want to focus specifically on your data engineering skills to help stitch data set sources together, great. If you want to focus exclusively on visualizations, that's also great. That's why this data kit is fairly broad, because there's always an opportunity for individuals to use their specific skills and contribute in innovative ways. Just a reminder in terms of the coding languages for you, we encourage you to code in whatever you are most comfortable with. If you typically code in R, please code in R. If you typically code in SQL or Python, you can do that as well. We don't want to have that be a barrier for anyone. On the contrary, we want you to be able to work in your usual environment and to focus on just testing, iterating, exploring the data. I know we're coming up at time in a couple of minutes. So again, just a reminder, one, this presentation is being recorded and it will be shared back with all of you. For those who will be registering a little bit later, we will also have a link to this presentation in our Slack channel. To get started, please join the Slack and the GitHub. Links have been posted in the chat. This will provide you with the most relevant information to get started. If you have additional questions, please do not hesitate to put those in Slack. For those that I haven't been able to address today, I will try to address those over the next couple of days to make sure that you have the information you need to get started.
There was a good question, Mallory, if you have a moment.
Yeah.
Someone had a comment around economic opportunity and where education can play a role in that. And curious as to whether to look at those data sets, or is this a wide net?
That's a fantastic question. Yes, education opportunities play a tremendous role in economic opportunities. So that's a fantastic question. In the additional information in the GitHub, you will see that educational attainment specifically is one of the key variables that can certainly that are certainly highly correlated with economic opportunity. If you have expertise and experience diving more deeply in educational data sets that and want to explore how that contributes to economic opportunity, then we encourage you to do so. That's absolutely a route that we say can provide some really valuable insights. Perhaps, Shayna, I will hand it over to close off the session. But again, everyone, my name is Mallory Sheff. I will be on and in the Slack channels over the next couple of weeks. Feel free to ask questions, tag me if I don't respond, and I will do my very best to provide the information, the insight that you need to take advantage of this exciting opportunity. And just a huge thank you to everyone that has joined us today, that will be joining us over the next couple of weeks. And I look forward to collaborating with you all.